All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Irrational Confidence Podcast. We're talking college football, and it's week number 8. We are 2/3 of the way done with the college football season. It's a loaded weekend, but the man, my co-host, the man that worked at a watch factory just so he can make faces at people, Fresh, how you doing, buddy?
Habs, I'm doing great. Week 8 to me is, to quote the great Al Davis, just win, baby. From now here on out, just win. That's kind of mode you're on now. Survive and advance every single week. Style points, they're okay, but if things work itself out and you take care of business, you'll be undefeated playing for a conference title and put yourself in the conversation for a playoff. So we are in a just win mode across the board.
Listen, style points, you might quote Al Davis. I'll quote Right Said Fred, and you better be I'm too sexy for these games here. So, you like that there,
I
Fresh?
don't know how to respond to that at all. So I think it's okay if we move on.
Hey, you know, there's something to said about Right Said Fred. All right, Fresh, let's go to our first game of the weekend. We put this in the poll. We decided, you know what, this was such a game that we were really hoping won the poll, but it didn't. And so we're still going to put the poll game, but wanted to throw this one in there as well. We got some action, and this is a really good football game. In the MAC, Toledo 6-1, traveling to Oxford, Ohio to face the Miami Redhawks. My sister is an alumni from there, but I also have been to Toledo a few times. Right now, at time of record, Toledo is a 2-point road favorite. That kind of shocked me there, Fresh. I got a little bit on the Redhawks here. Over under set at 48.5. Finn and Gabbert, two good quarterbacks. Boone and Amos, two good running backs. This is going to be a fascinating one. Give me a little bit on the Redhawks versus the Rockets.
I mean, I think we're going to see points in this football game, folks. Action is always a lot of fun. I really actually wish it was like a Tuesday or a Wednesday in November where we have some snow or some frost on the field, but we get out on a Saturday. But we've talked about DeQuan Finn multiple times on this podcast. He's been an explosive quarterback for the Rockets, with his leg, with his arm, making things happen all over the field, and he continues to produce this season. Penny Boone, the running back for the Rockets, 792 and 8 touchdowns so far, is a great compliment to that offense and a whole plethora of receivers. Neither of these teams actually play much defense. They're both giving up well over 300 yards total, a game, and it's all about who can score the most and survive. It is noted that these teams have beaten somebody, beaten some quality other Group of 5 teams. Toledo beat San Jose State, and among other teams, the Miami Redhawks actually beat Cincinnati. They have a Power 5 win to their name. They got an overtime, dub over the Bearcats. So these two teams are accomplished. They're not just playing a bunch of slappies and just stringing together wins that people might think, oh, well, they haven't really played anyone. They've played some quality opponents and they're taking care of business. And now they're starting to get into the meat of the conference schedule as the MAC play really starts to heat up now in mid to late October. On the other side, Brett Gabbert, 1,400 yards and change and 14 touchdown passes, and his wide receiver Gage Lovadian. The two of them have been a great combination. And I haven't, no proof, I haven't confirmed it or not, but I just have an eerie feeling that Brett Gabbert is related to former Missouri and Jaguar famous quarterback Blaine Gabbert. He's born from St. Louis, Missouri, so I have a pretty good feeling. I'm not sure, not 100%, so correct me if I'm wrong on YouTube and add the comments there, but I got a feeling this is Blaine Gabbert's little brother. And us, recording here in Jacksonville, Blaine Gabbert didn't turn out too well for the Jaguars, but he put up tons of numbers at Missouri. Maybe his brother's doing okay for the Redhawks. His offense is going to be moving all year. They've been putting points on the board, very efficient, not turning the ball over. It's going to be one of those games that's going to be very high scoring. I think whichever defense can maybe get a stop or whichever quarterback makes a mistake is going to be the real deciding factor. In the end, though, I've been, always big fan of Toledo and what they've been doing, and I have a feeling that the Rockets are going to take care of business and take down Miami of Ohio. But I got a feeling this will be the first matchup of 2 for the season, and they have a good chance of meeting later on. I believe for the MAC title.
Take the over in this game, folks. The over-under set 48.5. I'm going to I would say take the over, hammer the over in this one. That 2-point spread by Toledo, I think that's a little bit on the high side. I'd actually take Miami in this game. I actually would take Miami straight up in it. Toledo's got a great offense. Fresh, you went by it. Finn and Boone, phenomenal. They've been absolutely electric. DeQuan Finn, I've seen him pull off some amazing games. I go back to watching opening weekend where Toledo played Illinois. They should have beat Illinois in that game. Like this Toledo team is a really good football team. They're going to be tough. They're going to be a great measuring stick for the Red Hawks. I just got a feeling. And like you said, Fresh, I think this is the first of two meetings for Toledo and Miami. I think they're going to meet in the MAC title game. And I think Toledo's going to get the revenge on Miami. I think that this home field advantage is going to be huge for the Red Hawks. I think they're going to be jacked up. They're going to be ready to play. This is a 4 o'clock kickoff. It's going to be allowed time. Hey, some MAC schools know how to party. They know how to get after it. They ain't the big time big boys. Their tailgate scene is mainly done in dorm rooms. And they're going to have a lot of fun with this. You wake up with a 7-7, you get a 30 brick of stones or something like that. You go crazy at those MAC schools. I love it. That's my type of party there, Fresh. But I'm going to tell you this. It's the pride of Massillon, Ohio. That's the kid that I'm looking at. He's on the defensive side of the football. You said that there wasn't a lot of defense. Caden Woolard from Massillon, Ohio. If you aren't familiar with Massillon, go back a long time ago in the early 2000s. There's a documentary about Go Tigers, about how good a football is produced in Massillon. They're a phenomenal high school program, produce a lot of really good D1 talent down there. I really, really like this Red Hawk team. I don't know. I think that while we've been talking about Finn for a while there, I think just like you said, Brett Gabbert, Blaine Gabbert is Blaine Gabbert's little brother. So I can
Yes.
confirm that for you, Fresh. Guys, don't need to rip them in the comment section there, but go ahead and comment. If you want to rip us anyways, go right ahead. But I'm going to tell you this. I think this is his marquee win in Miami uniform. This kid is the best quarterback Miami's had since Ben Roethlisberger. Now
Woo!
I won't talk about Ben Roethlisberger's time at Miami, but I am going to talk about how good Brett Gabbert is. I think he's going to light up the scoreboard. You said this, Fresh. I think you're right, where they're like, there won't be a whole lot of defense. I think Toledo's going to have their hands full with this one. I think this is a lot of points. I think this is a close game, but give me the Red Hawks by a field goal.
Now, Haps, you're the resident Ohio, aficionado and knowledge base. Is Miami, Ohio, the bougie school in the MAC?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so they're the bougie kids. And correct me, Toledo, did neither state want them in Michigan? And was that the battle between Michigan and Ohio, and they kind of fought over Toledo?
That is the Battle of Fallen Timbers. There's a
Oof.
great friend of of the show, Ryan Agnew, did a phenomenal paper on the Battle of Fallen Timbers. If you ever want a good history lesson, I got a story about being in Ann Arbor, Michigan, the week of the game, helping him do some research about the Battle of Fallen Timbers sometime. But that's for another time and a place. Fresh, this is a great one because you get such good football in the MAC, and it's so competitive. It's not this Tuesday night where one team will blow out another one. Like these guys are going to come to play because these schools are in such close proximity of each other. There's a lot of really tight rivalries. All these schools usually recruit the same player, so there is this embedded competitiveness between the players. I love this game. I can't wait. This will be a game that I definitely have kind of at least maybe on for a good part of it. And then if there's a bigger game going on, I'll flip back and forth. But I will definitely be tuning in for this, and you should too.
Yeah, and just if you want to tune in, it's on ESPNU, folks.
Absolutely. All right, Fresh. Let's go our poll winner of the week. Folks, if you haven't already, make sure you're following us on social media, on the X every single week. We put out a college football poll. We tell you, hey, vote for the game, and we let you guys decide. We let you decide on which games we're going to talk about here. And our poll winner with an amazing over 50% of the vote. That's been a first for a long, long time there. Hey, it's third time the charm. The Utah Utes traveling to Southern California to face the USC Trojans. Both teams have one loss on the year. Utah is 5-1. USC is 6-1, coming off that loss to Notre Dame. Currently, USC is a 6.5 point favorite. Over under is set at 56 points in this. It's a lot of points for a Utes game here. Fresh, I'll throw it over to you.
I mean, this is the first time in the recent memory where they're facing off in LA. It's not going to be in Salt Lake City. It's not in Vegas. Maybe coming back home for the Trojans and getting them back in the Coliseum gets them to play at a different level, because the last 10 times we've seen these teams face off, it has been a beatdown and a half. Physically, in the trenches, on the scoreboard, USC just comes in high flying, fancy free, and the physical toughness of Utah defensively, offensively, um, and just has knocked them out. Made them look foolish. Potentially stole the playoff spot, last year by beating them in the title game. This is going to really test, I think, the USC and the Lincoln Riley psyche. If they can't get over this guys the third time, when this Utah team this year, Cam Rising, we all been waiting for him to get in the lineup. The team's been beat up. They don't have the Dalton Kincaids, the Clark Phillips the third. They're still trying to find the superstar. They're more of just a group of players who are playing really well together, but they haven't found their identity of who's going to be the leader, who's going to be the guy to take over and dominate. They just play as a collective unit. This is the time for USC to get them. And what kind of rally do they come back after losing a terrible fashion there in South Bend? The 5 turnovers, getting blasted on national. The game was never really competitive, and this is a chance for USC, maybe a tipping point of the program, maybe a tipping point under Lincoln Riley. What I mean by the program of you come in with all this pomp and circumstance, and you haven't done anything. You haven't won a conference title. You got an at-large bid to the New Year's Six. You got beat by Tulane in that game. You haven't played any lick of defense your entire time in USC, and honestly, you didn't coach defense and have anyone play defense when you were at Oklahoma. When is the mindset, the regime going to change under Lincoln Riley for a team to actually play complementary football, tough defense, and an offense that can score consistently and not turn the ball over in big games? You can put up tons of points versus whoever, but you've been looking a little rough. Even going back to the Colorado game, there were a lot of eyes were opened about how lackluster, how terrible the defense was, letting Colorado come back in that football game, having some off nights, not playing a full football, from top to bottom, offense, defense, and special teams. We just haven't seen that, and then you get all this Caleb Williams Heisman campaign, 2.0 coming off of all of that. We haven't seen them reintroduce themselves consistently. This is a chance by beating Utah, finally by beating Utah. But to do it, you're going to have to be physical. And you know what? You might actually have to swallow your pride and run the football and take the ball out of Caleb Williams' hands. Be physical at the line of scrimmage. Match Utah for what they are. They are physical. They are a grinded-out football team, and they make you play the full 4 quarters and then get you in the fourth quarter when you get too tired and turn the ball over. If you look back at some of these games, they get them in a down 10 late in the ball game. They fight. And then you lose your focus and you turn the ball over. USC has got to become that football team. You've got to embody the team that's actually taken you out of out of your playoff hopes the past couple of years. You've got to fight back and actually drive home and be physical on offense and defense and try to dominate the football game. They're not going to get any easier when you have Washington, Oregon coming up, and UCLA is looking much improved. This could really spiral out of control if you do not win on Saturday in the Coliseum. Utah is not what they were the past 2 years. You have to get your chance now, because if you lose this Utah team, it could all fall apart pretty quickly in the Coliseum. And I know Caleb Williams doesn't want to go play for the Chicago Bears and is trying not to get drafted, and just put out this comment about in his if he gets drafted and win over all he wants, ownership stake in the team and all that fun stuff. It's his way of trying to avoid going to the NFL. But what is he coming back to if the team is terrible? If this thing falls out, you got to go and get your money as fast as you can. This is a big game for USC and a big game for the Trojans, offense, defense, and special teams psyche of where they are. They are truly a championship quality program. It wasn't a conference loss to Notre Dame. I still think it killed their playoff hopes, but you have a chance of maybe still competing for a Pac-12 title and keeping yourself in that race. But you've got to take care of business versus Utah. On the other side, Kyle Whittingham, keep doing what you're doing. Put all those guys. You know what? I'm going to call them a bunch of no-names because that's how they play. They don't care about the name on the back of the jersey. They care about the name on the front there at Utah. And they play for each other. They play team defense. They play team offense. And they grind it out. They don't care about winning pretty. They just care about winning in the end. They're going to come in 100% prepared, ready to go and execute on defense. And they just have to manage the football game, continue to force Caleb Williams into bad decisions, and try to mess with Lincoln Riley's mind. Make him outthink himself. And that's how you win. In the end, though, I think Caleb Williams and USC grind out an ugly win. They survive Utah. They finally overcome them. I'm going to say a 27-20, 27-17 win. It will not be pretty, but actually I think it'll do USC more good in the long run by winning an ugly, slow, sluggish football game as opposed to winning 56-30 and they making everyone think that everything's fantastic. They will win an ugly ball game. The Utes will fight hard, but USC will finally prevail over Utah late in the football game.
Yeah, Fresh. If this game was in Utah, I would be picking the Utes in a blowout. That team's just a different team there. They play much differently at home. When they go on the road, that offense doesn't always travel very well with them when they leave the friendly confines of Salt Lake City. This is a place where this is a game where you could really see the Utah offense come alive in here. And I was thinking about when I was prepping for this game, USC faced a very good Notre Dame defense, especially a very good Notre Dame secondary defense that's been pretty impressive on this season. And then I started looking at Utah. Utah is a top 5 defense in the country. Oh, big shocker there. Kyle Whittingham has a top 5 defense again. Like, I'm not surprised by that. The problem I have is at the quarterback position. Like, we've been talking since week 1, like, when is Cam Rising coming back? And again, we've talked about this before where college football doesn't have to provide us injury reports. They always say, oh, he's making progress, or he's doing this or that or the other. And I think that's where this Utah team is missing that disconnect. They've moved to Bryson Barnes as the starter there. He was the starter in the Cal game. Nate Johnson's been a nice little spell quarterback for them. He's had a start or two there. I think that right now they're rolling with Barnes instead of Johnson. But we'll see in this game. The game, it really comes down to, can Utah put up enough points in this game? Can they cross the 28, 30 mark on this? Because USC is going to be a little angry. They're going to come a little pissed off because they got their feelings hurt. They got all up in their feelings and got smacked around by Notre Dame. It was bad. And what really happened, Fresh, and I give us the equate, me and you, we do this podcast here. We're on YouTube. We don't wear makeup. We are who you see we are. We're two guys with faces made for radio here. And I feel like USC is when you see a person with makeup on and it runs off and you're like, ooh, you were really hiding some of your flaws there with that makeup. And that's what's happening to the USC offense. The offense has been kind of shut down a little bit. It's not as prolific as it was earlier in the season. I think the makeup's starting to run off and we're starting to go, ooh, those are some serious flaws we see in USC. The question I have is, can Utah exploit those flaws? Can they do it? And can they, most importantly, do it on the road? Because in their one road test this year, you take a look at with them going to Corvallis, and they did a very good job against the Beavers. I mean, you take a look, DJU only about 200 yards passing. They forced an interception on him. They did give up 131 yards on the ground, but it took 36 carries to get there. It's 3.6 yards a carry. They can do this. They can pull this off. USC has got to be able to take advantage of opportunities in this game. I'm going to say USC is going to pull off the game. I don't know if I like the 6.5, though. I think I would take Utah in the points. I got USC to win, Utah in the points, and I'm going to go crazy here, Fresh. I'm going to say the under comes in.
Ooh. Just very sluggish, very low scoring.
Right.
USC is actually going to play some sort of defense.
I don't think they're going to play some defense. I don't think Utah's offense is good enough to exploit the bad defense of USC.
That's.
I think their
You know what?
defense will
I could
travel.
see it. I could see that. I could see it.
Yeah. So
That's a sign your offense is terrible.
right. And I think if we got word tomorrow that Cam Rising's this is his first game back, then pretty much throw everything I said out the window.
I think I think that actually
change.
might still come into play because it'll be a sluggish rebound for him. He hasn't really played all year.
Right. All right, Fresh. Let's go to the Family Matters game. It's Big Brother versus Little Brother. And this is maybe Big Brother versus a preschool brother. It is the Wolverines traveling to East Lansing to play the Spartans. At time of record, Wolverines are 24-point road favorite. Over-under is set at 48 points. I think we both know who's going to win this game. How bad's it going to get?
I think this is going to be a beatdown and a half. Um, like, and all rivalries, we're going to start off, all rivalries, there are crazy things that happen. 8 years ago, we saw the Michigan punter not catch the snap, and Michigan State knock the ball out, take it to the house, and win the ball game. Crazy things happen in rivalry games. Um, Michigan State will need a miracle to beat Michigan on Saturday. There's no fire in this football team at any point. I don't see anything there that, maybe you watch, you're like, oh, they have a glimmer of hope, or that player looked pretty good, or at least they have a good offense, or at least they have a running game. They have nothing right now at Michigan State. Mel Tucker tore that. Actually, I think it was a complete mirage in 2021 with what he did. But he has torn this entire program down, and there's no structure. There's no offensive line play. There's no, consistent running back. This is a problem with hitting transfer portal. You go in there, and they got Kenneth Walker III. They got some transfer players. They didn't have a core of an entire program there. So when things fall through and other guys leave, who is still there? There's no one. It's just the guys who are putting on the Michigan State jersey and trying to play to maintain their scholarship. But will any of them actually show up on Saturday afternoon, offensively, defensively, or whatever, and give a fight? Do any of them care about playing in-state rival Michigan? This is going to be a real test of the integrity of being what it is to be a Michigan State Spartan. Because, weirdly, they're 2-1 in the past 3 years versus Michigan. Like, Michigan State's actually beaten the Wolverines. So I got a feeling Harbaugh is going to want to make sure he takes out all pain on them this year. He knows the last time they were there, they had it locked up and they blew it in the second half. That means something to Harbaugh, and I got a feeling he's going to take out any kind of pain. He's going to leave no doubt. And remember the Titans, when he looks at him, he's like, leave no doubt. It's that kind of mentality where there is going to be a beatdown. They will not cross the line of scrimmage. They will not gain another yard the rest of the night. This is going to be that kind of football game for Michigan, because I think they sort of also have been under the radar, sort of like, oh, ho-hum. They're dropping 50 on everybody. But, Michigan's been Michigan. Blake Corum's running for his yards. Edwards running for his yards. McCarthy's throwing his passes. Receivers catching touchdowns. Defense playing lights out, top 3 in the nation in, tons of categories. But we haven't, taken like, oh, my God, they just did that, because they haven't played anybody yet. This is that kind of game where it's a rivalry game where you make your statement, because you have Penn State coming up. You still got Maryland on the schedule. You still have, that game at the end of the year. You've got to, get an early one to get everyone's attention, because right now, you're top 4. We talk about, you mentioned it, ranking but people in the top 10 or top 4 based on what they've done this year. Michigan's played nobody, so how do we even know that they're that good? This is a chance for them to prove that they're actually that good against a name team, because people are going to say, they just beat Michigan State by what? Nobody says that when they beat Northwestern or Rutgers. Like, oh, whatever, it's Rutgers. So they beat ECU. Nobody cares. This is that chance for Harbaugh and them to actually make a statement of, they just beat Michigan State, and they beat them by 50. If Michigan State gives any fight, and I kind of hope they make it a football game, it's going to have to come from the defense first. They're going to have to be tough. They're going to have to grind it out, play a line of scrimmage football game, make it ugly, get after the running backs and get after McCarthy. Play with every ounce you have. And you've got to make it last 4 quarters. You can't just come out in the first quarter and be like, we're going to play tough, and then, well, you know what? We're down by 10. Let's give it up. You've got to play a full 4 quarters and inspire your offense, because your offense is not dynamic at all. Your defense is going to have to set the tone, or at least try to compete with Michigan to get some stops, force some turnovers, make it clunky, make it fluky, and maybe something in the second half, maybe something in the fourth quarter goes your way. If you get blown out, that offense does not have the tools to come back. Peyton Thorne, he was your best quarterback in recent memory, and he's terrible down in Auburn right now. You don't have a Kenneth Walker III to turn over to, turn back to and hand off. Jaden Reed is not there. They don't have the receivers there on that team to catch the football like they had the past few years. You've got to find what your will is deep down on defense to inspire your offense to score, because that Michigan Wolverine team is coming with blood, and they're going to come get it. I don't think this is, I think 24 is actually too low. You could probably make this a 30-point favorite. I think Michigan would cover the 30. It's going to be ugly, and it's going to be ugly fast. They might have 3 running backs crack 100 yards rushing for Michigan by the end of the day.
Fresh, the question I have for you is not like, I think Michigan's going to wind up winning this game. The Wolverines are way too talented. I think that they right now, you're right, they haven't played anybody. Their schedule's been very, very weak. But in the games that they have played, they've passed the eye test against lesser competition. They look like the most complete team, unfortunately, from top to bottom to me. The question I start wondering, though, in a game like this, at what point do you pull your starters? And this is where I would go with Harbaugh. You need to be careful. You need to make sure that you're getting J.J. McCarthy is working. You need to get Blake Corum and Edwards their work in. You need to make sure that your defense is being that really tough defense. They have allowed the least amount of points in all of college football right now. That defense, again, they haven't played anybody, but they're still like just completely suffocating opponents there. Are you able to do all that? And then at what point do you call off the dogs? Because in a rivalry game, if you start really and say, we're up 31-7 right now. We're up 31-7. It's halfway through the third quarter. Are we just, let's get out of here. We won this game. We've beat you right now. Or does Harbaugh say, I want my pound of flesh for the previous games. And at that point, it doesn't take much for a Michigan State player to take a very dirty and a cheap shot. And next thing you know, one of your marquee guys, a late hit gets taken by J.J. McCarthy. A guy rolls over Blake Corum's knee or something along those lines. Something that just kind of accidentally happens in a rivalry game. I'm not going to say that the Spartans are dirty players or anything like that, but when you get into these games where emotion gets the best of you in those scenarios, at what point do you need to say, okay, enough is enough and we back the dogs off here? That's what I think is going to happen this game. I actually think this game is going to be close in the first half. I think it's going, and when I say close, I'm saying no more than a 14-point ball game. I would actually be willing to take the Spartans and the points. The reason why I'm willing to take Sparty and the points is that I think Harbaugh is smart enough to know if I'm up by 3 touchdowns, I'm going to call him off. I'm going to call him off. I'm going to start putting my backups in. 3 touchdowns. I'm just going to keep that. As long as I got that 3 touchdown lead, I'm going to hold you off. I'm just going to keep you at arm's distance. We'll get out of East Lansing as fast as possible. Got another win. We have the big time matchups in November. They got to go to Penn State. They got to go to Maryland, and then they finish off the year with the normal annual meeting of the game. But their goals are bigger than this game. Michigan State, I don't want to Iowa them right now and say like they have absolute no chance, but it really is going to take something different that we haven't seen this year. It's going to take Sparty doing something, Noah Kim going off and throwing touchdowns, or is it going to be Nathan Carter just breaking tackle after tackle just because they're at home? I think Sparty's going to come a little pumped up because it is a rivalry game. I would say keeps close at halftime, third quarter, and I'll say give me the Wolverines by 23. I'm going to say just under the 24 mark. And I'll take the under in this, 48.
Speaking of over-under 4.5 trick plays by Michigan State in the ballgame.
Over, easily over.
I mean, if I'm the offense coordinator, I just dig into your bag. You got nothing to lose, and that's all you mentioned. The
Right.
things happen on the field. The guys have nothing to lose. Just go out there and
They
let
really
it all hang
don't.
out.
Yeah. And why? Because they didn't hold anything back. You got to throw out those things, Fresh. All right, Fresh. Let's go to
Joe
maybe.
Montana.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go maybe one of the best games of the weekend, and it's in the Big 12. Again, this game's at 3:30. I'm excited for it. I think this is going to be a barn burner of a game. It's going to set the mountains of West Virginia on fire. Take me home, country roads. The Oklahoma State Cowboys, they're 4-2 on the season, 2-1 in the Big 12, and they're traveling to Morgantown, West Virginia. They're 4-2 as well, and 2-1 in the Big 12 as well. Both of these teams playing some really good football. I know West Virginia lost last week to Houston in a weird, wacky, wild game down there in Texas, but this is, hey, Neil Brown saving his job. We thought he'd be the first coach fired this year. Turned out we were wrong about that one, and Mel Tucker has that distinguished. Well, Pat Fitzgerald, I guess, but Mel
Yeah,
Tucker.
he didn't even make it through fall practice.
That's true. But this is a great game here, Fresh. I really love what they're doing. West Virginia's doing with their quarterback Green. Donaldson's been really a tough-nosed runner, what we expect from a Mountaineer running back there. And Clement, man, this kid's been this freshman, Hudson Clement. I like him a lot. He's been really good, coming up big time when we need the most. What you got for Oklahoma, West Virginia?
I mean, first off, what has Pat McAfee done to help the portal, and help kids get NIL deals there at West Virginia? Whatever he's done a pretty good job. But they've played outside of the opener when they played Penn State. They have improved week in and week out. They've played aggressive football. And Neil Brown he was on his last legs and has put together a heck of a run right now, which is
Right.
a testament, I think, to him, a testament to the players that are playing for each other and for him. You could have seen other kids be like, you know what, we could shut it down a little bit. Maybe this guy isn't the greatest fit. I could have transferred out. I could have done, this, done that, make my own quote unquote business decisions. But they made the business decision of playing for each other and playing for him. They had a great offensive line coming into the year, and they've trusted it, whether it's pass protection, or the run blocking mentality. They have taken a hold of the offense. They understand it. They're playing for each other and playing great football, and they're putting up tons of points. It kind of looked clunky there, as I mentioned, the opener, but they found ways to adapt to the strengths of this football team. Come out there and just win ball games quietly. Both these teams have quietly won football games. Everyone else, Texas and Oklahoma, we gave Texas Tech a lot of love in the beginning of the year. TCU was the darling last year. Kansas has gotten a lot of love. K-State's gotten a bunch of love. And these two schools just wading through the Big 12 and doing their own business. And they have, put themselves in a conversation for a pretty good bowl game. Obviously, I think we both agree that Oklahoma and Texas are going to face each other off for the Big 12 title game. But this isn't just about this year as well. This is about the future of, we have a chance of showing people we are quality football programs, we are names, and we aren't just going to fade away when those two teams leave the league. And we are going to be able to build off this year, gain recruits, and then dominate this conference going forward. Because, the Big 12, once Texas and Oklahoma leave, it's wide open to anybody. And West
Right.
Virginia and Oklahoma State have been names for a long time.
Right.
There's history behind both these programs that this is a chance where you kind of use it, you build traction on the recruiting trail, you build traction this year, you finish maybe third or fourth in the league, and then you take control next year. I know we've been waiting for Oklahoma State to become that consistent winner with all that and that Pickens money there and everything they've done with Coach Gundy over the years. They've always been that team we keep wanting to see more from, wanting to get a little bit more from, and they always fall a little bit short, maybe a yard short in the Big 12 title game a couple of years ago. We thought, after last year they were kind of rough. This year, Gundy's got those guys off the mat with back-to-back wins over the teams from Kansas. And they haven't been pretty wins. If you watch them, believe me, they cost me money when I was in Vegas when they beat K-State. But Oklahoma State comes out there and they grind it out. They get it done. They play as a full roster. No one's been a super stud outside of Ollie Gordon last week when he ran all over. They plug guys in and they get the job done for Oklahoma State. And West Virginia is almost the exact same. They're plugging guys in and they're getting it done. I got a feeling this is going to be a fun football game to watch. Uniform wise, these two probably produce some of the best combinations out there. I really hope they both dig into their bag and bring some crazy stuff. But in the end, country roads take me home. I think the Mountaineers being up there in Morgantown gives them a little boost. And I think the energy they had of losing that game in a heartbreaking fashion is going to get them fired up, take the next step this week. It's going to be a close game. I think they win by 3. This game's going to go back and forth all afternoon. They're going to win by 3 points. West Virginia survives Oklahoma State, but these two football teams are in great shape. And I think actually West Virginia wins and they get into the top 25 next weekend.
Fresh, I think you're spot on here in regards to this game is really important for the 2024 season. Once Texas and Oklahoma is gone, who is going to be able to puff their chest out going into the 24 season saying, we're the favorite now for the Big 12? The Big 12 isn't like the Pac-12. It's not collapsing. They're going to be guaranteed a playoff spot when the playoffs expand. I really like this West Virginia team. I know and again, we joke about this. We have a soft spot for West Virginia. We've had a soft spot since we started this podcast. We really like Morgantown. We think that the West Virginia fan base is one of the better fan bases in the country. They're passionate. They go to the games. They sing country roads. We love them. And hey Mountaineers, let's go out and drink some beers. Like there's some great chants that they say over there in Morgantown. They got a great football team. They got a great quarterback. I know that they've gone through kind of this weird rocky patch there, but Garrett Green has been the real deal for them. I love this kid because he takes care of the football. Take a look. He's only got, people are going to look at him and say, well, the kid's only got 6 touchdowns on the season. Yeah, but he has 1 interception. His 1 interception came last week against Houston. Okay, this kid he could do a little bit better completing a little more passes as well. But again, he takes care of the football, doesn't take a lot of sacks. That's a recipe to win because that's what you're going to do. You're going to stay in front of the sticks. You're going to get yourself in first and second down. You're not going to be in third and long situations that often with Garrett Green running your show here. He's a dual threat quarterback. CJ Donaldson's been really a nice complementary running back. Like to see a little bit more out of him, maybe up that yards per carry. Love to see him at around 4.5 yards a carry instead of that 4 number. But this West Virginia team, I think they're building something. They really are building something. On the other end, for Oklahoma State, we after last year, I think we all kind of just wrote the Cowboys off for dead. Like I think Spencer Sanders transferred out, and then it's easy to make fun of Oklahoma State with Mike Gundy there still, and those of us who remember I'm a Man press conferences. Like this is an interesting Oklahoma State team. And in a couple years, they could. I don't think Mike Gundy's going anywhere. I think he's going to be there for a while, and they're producing really good football players there. I really like this kid on the defensive side of the football, linebacker Nicholas Martin. 4 sacks on the year, 54 tackles. He's their leading tackler. Oklahoma State, a few years ago, before Jim Knowles left there, they had a great defense, got after the quarterback. If he can, I talked earlier about how Garrett Green avoids the sack, avoids being behind the chains. If Oklahoma State can do that to West Virginia, if they can put them in 2nd and 12, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10 routinely time and time again in this game, they got a shot to win this game. They got a shot to go into Morgantown and get the upset. I don't think that's going to happen. I think West Virginia is going to win this game. But I'm going to give you a name to watch out here, Fresh. And every time I decide to talk about these type of players, I can't think of our friend Paul McCord there, coach. And Oklahoma State's got a great place kicker. Kid's 15 for 50 on extra points, but he's 15 for 18 on field goals. He is 3 for 3 from beyond 50 yards, which is fantastic for a college kicker. For a college kicker, this kid is a really good one. Alex Hale, if the game gets put onto his foot, watch out. So West Virginia, you need to win this one going away. That 3.5 that West Virginia, I actually like West Virginia by 7 in this game. I'm going to say take the over of the 49.5 too. I think there's going to be some points put up in this game.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a fun one, a nice little Big 12 shootout. This might actually be one of our games of the week if it goes the way we think. Just back and forth the entire time.
Right. Entertaining football. And folks, this is one of the things too, we've talked about this for years, Fresh, is everyone always wants to just only focus on the top end of college football. They only want to talk about the top 10 teams and who they're playing and whatnot. And one of the things we've said from day one is that there's such great football being played all over the country. Neither one of these teams are going to compete for a national title. And most likely, neither one of these teams are going to sniff a New Year's Day 6 game. But that doesn't take away that both of these teams are having a great season. This is going to be a great game and entertaining to watch. And 2 great fan bases that will make, the other side hear a little bit more if they wind up with the W in it.
Agreed. Definitely agree.
All right, Fresh, let's go down to the state of Florida where we're at to Tallahassee. This is weird to say. The 5-1 Duke Blue Devils. They're 2-0 in the ACC. They're only lost to Notre Dame, facing the undefeated 6-0 Florida State Seminoles. At time of record, Florida State is a 14-point favorite. Over-under is set at 49 right now. Fresh, I think really my question comes down is Riley Leonard playing in this football game. I haven't seen anything recently. I don't know if you have better information than I do on that game, but Duke's been doing this. People are sleeping on that Blue Devils defense. That Blue Devils defense is allowing less than 300 yards of total offense a game right now. Pretty darn good defense over there in Durham. What do you got on Florida State versus Duke?
Well, I think first off, Knowles have quietly smoked the Hokies in the Orange the past 2 weeks. ho hum and just go out there and beat the trash out of the two opponents, doing what they have to do ever since they survived that Clemson game. They kind of haven't had the spotlight on them for a couple of weeks. This is a chance right here for Florida State to really get that national chance to showcase themselves. If Miami wins a couple of games, gets back to being ranked, that puts that game back in maybe a focus point now. But this could be the last ranked team that Florida State plays.
Right.
This is going to be a chance for them to really. You've got to take advantage of it right now. You got to show up before the ACC title game. You might not play on the ranked team. You've got to put it on. Everyone's going to be watching you on Saturday night in Doak. The tomahawk chop, Chief, throwing down the spear. You've got to make sure you take advantage of the opportunity. You can't let Duke come in there and take advantage and use that national spotlight to go on the road and beat you in your own house. Because then, I don't care what happens, that might actually destroy your playoff hopes if you lose at home to Duke. I mean, Duke's good, but that actually will be a very big hit to you because of your lack of ranked wins, and a home loss like that would be very detrimental to everything you've tried to produce and put together so far this season. You've got to play a complete football game. We talked in the preseason how there weren't many games that they would have on their schedule that at home, much less overall, they would have to take advantage of and dominate. We thought it would be more Miami. We didn't expect Duke to be as good as they are right now. This is actually a surprise game, but they've got to be able to maximize it. That means Jordan Travis coming out there, Coleman, Wilson, Benson, all the studs on offense working in sync. We've seen both the receivers throughout the entire year, really just make amazing catches and amazing plays, especially Coleman, who's just been, make the one-handed grab last week. These guys have been flying high, but now you have a chance with all eyes on it to do it to a whole new level. It's not just the LSU game, the opener. Show where you continue to have built the offense and grown the offense, week to week and game to game. Norvell, where's this defense at? Where's Verse at? I haven't seen Verse get in a multi-sack game. He's kind of quietly just done his own thing along with everyone else on the defense. They get in there, they do their work, they take care of business, and they move on. We want to get a dominant effort. If you really want to supplant yourself as a top four team and really tell the committee, I mentioned it's just win, baby, but this is one of those rare cases where Florida State needs to show up and they need to show out, and they need to dominate and get some style points. Verse comes out there, gets a couple sacks, whoever the quarterback is for Duke. If they come out there and maybe give up 10 points or less, it doesn't show that they're just a great team at Florida State. It shows they're an elite team because this Duke team almost beat Notre Dame, who almost beat Ohio State, who also beat, and then Notre Dame also beat USC. It just shows you talk the comparison across squads and, team to team. It puts Florida State at a high level of being an elite program. So this is a chance for them to really go out there. You cannot leave anything for chance. Do not let Mike Elko's Duke defense come out there and get a couple stops and get momentum. If Riley Leonard plays, he didn't play. He had a bye week on the 7th. He didn't play last week versus NC State. Maybe they were giving him a couple weeks to get healthy after that Notre Dame game. If he does show up, that's going to put a lot of pressure on that Florida State defense to maybe catch his mobility because he's a runner and a thrower. He creates things with his feet. Very similar to what Jalen Daniels did in week 1 for LSU. Using the feet, finding receivers, making the defense sort of lose contain, if you will, and exposing them. But Duke's going to have to finish it in all ends, and that's where it comes down to Jordan Waters running the football all day long, being very efficient, owning the line of scrimmage. Duke, if you're going to win, you've got to make this ugly, but you've got to score touchdowns. You cannot kick field goals against Florida State to win. You have to find ways in the red zone to punch it in. You would have beat Notre Dame if you found ways to score more touchdowns in the red zone. You've got to find that to happen here in Doak Campbell on Saturday night. Turnovers are going to have to be a must, shorten the field, but you've got to muck it up. Be yourself. Come out there, be ugly, be physical, take it to them if you want to have a chance to win. You got to, take the air out of the football, keep Jordan Travis and that Florida State offense on the sideline, long, methodical drives. That's how Duke's going to have to win this football game. We've seen you do it in the past, forcing turnovers, getting off the field and long drives. You're going to have your ultimate football game. You came up short versus Notre Dame at home. Can you take what you lessons learned in that football game and put them into a bigger spotlight to pull off a monumental upset? Probably maybe the biggest Duke football win if you win this football game in ever. This could be a huge effort. So you've got a chance. It's all in front of you, but you've got to go out there. You've got to play your football game. Do not get caught up in some sort of arena ball shootout with Florida State's high prolific offense. Make it your football game if you want to win. Florida State, do what you have to do. Find ways to, put your points up. Don't get too cocky because you're playing an elite football team. If you get cocky, going for it on fourth downs in your own side of the field, those sort of stuff, you might pay for it, and you might pay dearly. It might not just cost you a game. It might cost you a playoff spot. Just take care of business and focus. This is going to be, I think, another very, very good football game. Pads are going to be popping all Saturday night. But in the end, I think Notre Dame, I think the Noles win by 14. I think they get a late touchdown to cover the spread. But this is going to be a battle. If Riley Leonard does not play, I think it gets ugly early. But if Leonard is playing, watch out because Duke could make it interesting if the ball bounces their way late. But I think Florida State wins.
So I just pulled up Elko's Monday press conference transcript. He said Riley Leonard is currently day-to-day right now. So I'm going to guess that he's probably going to play in this game. If you're day-to-day, I think that it's going to be a hard time missing out on such a big game in your season. But maybe he goes through warm-ups. He did go through warm-ups in the NC State game, and they decided he just wasn't ready for them. He'll be 3 weeks removed from the original injury by the time this game kicks off. So I'm going to probably bet on the side of that he'll play in this football game. I went through and we can talk about all of the weapons that Seminoles have. Keon Coleman's been probably the best transfer in college football this year. We thought Johnny Wilson was going to be the top target for Jordan Travis, but look at everything Keon Coleman's done. 418 yards. He's got 7 touchdowns on the year, 29 catches there. He really does open things up. He's averaging almost 15 yards a catch here as well. He's been phenomenal. He's been absolutely phenomenal. Jordan Travis, he's a fringe Heisman person. He needs that marquee, put me on the map, like dominant game. Like, let me just show out how great I am. 4 or 5 touchdown game. It's not going to have it in this game. That Duke defense is really, really tough. Like I said, Lena have let up under 300 yards a game. They're only allowing 164 yards passing on the season. This is a tough team to throw on. And I think that that's going to be where Florida State gets really, really frustrated. Riley Leonard and making sure Jordan Waters gets the football. I like this kid a lot. I think they've been handing the ball off to him without Leonard in the backfield. He could really spell those because, like you said, Leonard's a dual threat quarterback. Especially with an ankle injury, it's going to make things a little bit difficult for him run the football. Now watch, I'll say that, and he's going to run for like $125 in this game or something like that. But I really think that you could take away out of this. Throw a couple of wrinkles on there. Put Jordan Waters in a screen situation. Get him a little bit of space there. He only has 5 catches on the year, but he has 76 yards on there, and his long was 25 yards. So the kid, when you get him out there, I think the screen game could be very powerful in this matchup here. In the end, I'm going to go with Florida State because they're at home. But watch out for Duke. Really, really watch out. I like the Blue Devils and the points in this game. Riley Leonard playing. I'm close to saying Duke pulls off the upset here. I'm like, if this game was in Durham, the game was in North Carolina, I probably would just be like, forget it. Let's go with Duke. Especially if I was getting points, I'd go with Duke then. I really think Florida State's going to win this. I think it's going to be close, though. I think it's touchdown or less type of game. It's going to come down to the fourth quarter there. I think Jordan Travis is going to find Keon Coleman in the back of that end zone. Doak's going to go insane there. They're going to be doing the chomp. They're going to be doing everything else to get really ready to go. But then Florida State's schedule really eases up the rest of the way. They really are going to need to make sure they handle their business and not get lackadaisical all the way up until the ACC title game where they'll probably face in North Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be one of those games where you can't blow this opportunity because there's
Right.
not many left down the stretch.
Right. All right, Fresh. Let's go to another big time. Guys, get your cigars ready. We're going down to the state of Alabama, Tennessee. Good old Rocky Top. You're going to Alabama. Did something you haven't done in a very, very long time last year. You beat Nick Saban in Knoxville, and then you tore down your goalpost and threw it into the river. Love it. Man, this is weird because both of these teams, had such, like, I don't want to say high hopes. Like, Alabama has high expectations, Fresh, and there's no getting around it. And Alabama's having, even at 6-1, and 4-0 in the conference. Alabama is having a disappointing year by their standards, which is bizarre to me. And then Tennessee, 5-1, 2-1 in the conference there. I don't know. At time of record, Alabama is a 9-point favorite. Over under in this game is set at 49. I'm really strong on taking the under in this game, Fresh. I think this is going to be really, really, really low scoring. But I'll throw it over to you. What you got?
I think these teams this year are actually almost identical. Their offenses have been hit or miss every single game. Their defenses have actually been pretty on point for the most part, getting after the quarterback especially. Alabama's tied with James Madison for third in the nation with 26 sacks as a team. The Vols are right after them with 24, and they're tied with Jacksonville State. Both these teams are getting after the quarterback and getting, and making the other team really play long down and distance situations and getting off the field. You think they're about to break, they come up, they get a sack, or they get off the field. They both have played really well. Tennessee's defense this year, as they held them back last year and they held them back the year before, I feel like they kind of turned the corner a little bit. They're playing a better coverage in the secondary. They're getting turnovers. They're getting off the field. They have been a major bright spot because Joe Milton has definitely been hit or miss. Even the running game has been pretty good for Tennessee, but Joe Milton has actually probably left some points in the field. But the defense, if this was last year's squad or the squad before, they might have had another loss there because the defense just couldn't stop anybody and the offense couldn't score. They're finding a little more of a balance right now, or Josh Heupel, and maybe it's the right recipe for success for the Vols to come in here to Tuscaloosa and get a win and win back-to-back for the first time in whoever knows how long. It's a different, unique, and maybe it's good for Heupel to have to rely on his defense to actually win and let the offense sort of develop as the season goes, as opposed to waiting for the defense to catch up and having a high-flying offense. The Vols are throwing for 212, but they're running for 231. They're almost a 50-50 offense, basically. And maybe the running game is because they're trying to run the clock out and save their offense and save the defense and play more complementary. Maybe because they're blowing people out, they're running the ball in the second half. But either way, they have become a very even, balanced offense, which I think helps them in tough situations where you can go and run the ball a couple times, get some first downs, slow the pace down, help your quarterback. Joe Milton should be out there throwing the ball. The guy self-proclaimed could throw it 150 yards, but he's not hitting receivers. You might overthrow him by 20. And I think that's where Heupel's had to learn. I've got to pull it back a little bit and run the football and help my own quarterback out. And my defense is playing good, so I don't have to score 50 every day. Every team wants to score 50 points. But if you have deficiencies and you're starting to see your defense play better, you can maybe call your game a little different. You're going to need the running game in Tuscaloosa to win the football game. If you come out there and start chucking it and getting a 3-and-out, Milroe and that Alabama offense will eventually get it going. But Tennessee's defense and running the football is going to really help them in this road game because we know we've talked about it a million times. Defense and running games travel. Passing games, hit or miss, but defense always travels, and so does the ground game. They're great complements of each other. And I think Josh Heupel at the right time is starting to find that good balance in that offense and that defense to get them playing in the right way. I think they've also learned a lot from that loss to Florida. They were not tough. They were weak. They were soft defensively at Florida. They got run all over by a Gator team that is so-so. I think they have a good defense. Their offense is average, but they got beat out physical at the line of scrimmage, and they've learned from that football game. This is that next road game. Can they learn and take those lessons and actually put them into practice? You're not coming in with we haven't won in forever. Now you're coming off a win. The expectation now is you win back-to-back. You're not going to try to get lucky and win one for the first time. You have to go and back up your effort. For everything you did last year and how the great praise, it still took you to survive an Alabama comeback in the second half and hit a walk-off field goal to win. It's not like you blew Alabama out. That team was one of the most mediocre Alabama teams we've seen collectively across the board, and you still barely beat them. Now you're coming in with a very similar Alabama football team, and your team's not as great as it was last year. Where do you dig deep and show up at? Which of you Vols want to give all for Tennessee on Saturday and going down to Tuscaloosa? If you go down there and get thumped, it's basically like last year was all great, but did you go to the playoff? No. Did you play for the SEC title? No. It actually kind of felt like it's a worthless win over Alabama if nothing actually came of the victory. You have a chance of keeping yourself alive. If you lose to Alabama, that's 2 conference losses. That puts you almost out of the Eastern run for the for the SEC championship game, and you're just another ho hum team playing for 24 then? And at what point you keep playing for 24? Does that become playing for 25? You keep kicking the can down the road. You got to maximize your opportunities if you're Tennessee. Josh Heupel, you have to call your best game. Defensively, you got to play your best game if you want to beat Nick Saban. This Alabama team, as I turn the corner to the Tide, they have quietly gotten over the loss to Texas. They have played ugly, but they've won. They have won. They went to A&M. They won. They beat Ole Miss. They survived Arkansas. But the thing is, they've won, and the defense has gotten better and better every single week. The offense is efficient right now. Milroe's not fantastic. The offensive line is horrible. I mean, they've given up 31 sacks, which is 130th in the nation. If you put them in passing situations, that offensive line most likely is going to collapse, and you're going to be able to get a sack. Alabama's going to you're going to have to stop the running game and force them in those passing situations. If they're running the football with intent and they're keeping the down distance under control, you're going to have a tough time stopping that Alabama offense. They're going to do just enough to find a way to score some points. Being at home is going to give them an extra boost. Losing last year is going to give them an extra boost. You know, to look back at Game of Thrones, I don't know how many people are Game of Thrones fans out there, but to refer, the North remembers, the Tide remember. They remember last year. They see all the cigars. They remember see all the sights telling their dynasty was over last year. They remember. That's been beaten to their minds every single day of the offseason. We both said during the spring and even during preseason previews, we called for Alabama to roll them. I don't think Alabama's going to roll Tennessee in this ball game after seeing the way they've played, but they're going to be physical enough and prepared enough to take on Tennessee, and they have revenge in their mindset. They remember everything that happened in the football game. They also remember how close they came to beating, quote unquote, the best Tennessee team in the past 20 years. This is going to be a hard fought, old school Alabama Tennessee game. You're going to see teams battle. They're not going to get anywhere close to hitting the over in this football game. This might be like a 17-10, 17-13. Pads will be popping. There will be personal foul penalties all across the board. This will be a classic old school SEC run the football, hit you in the mouth. You know what? Nick Saban might even tell his team to go out there and get a couple personal fouls just to keep the intensity and to send a message to Tennessee that we are not going to mess around. We're going to hit you, and we're going to be the most physical football team. This Tennessee team will actually probably run into a 09 version of Alabama where they're going to run the ball, two tight ends, I formation if they have to. They might throw the ball 10 times, but they're going to run the ball 40 or 50 times down your throat, kill the clock, take it away, and show that they are not going anywhere. And they are still Alabama, and they actually continue to layer on their resume of they are here moving one game at a time, heading toward Atlanta, and they are not dead, and they are nowhere near gone in the SEC and in the national landscape. Tennessee might, if they can't get an offense, and Joe Milton has struggles early, it could get ugly because I don't know where he'll get. He might get the flow knocked out. Be prepared for a four-quarter brawl in Tuscaloosa on Saturday. I think Milroe throws one touchdown, and they find a way to survive in a 19-10, 17-10, 17-13 game. This will be ugly. There will be blood on the field, but Alabama will survive in a very, very just old school rock'em sock'em football game. And Josh Heupel will have to do some serious asking and answering us some questions about why his team has two losses and where they're going to go from there. But Alabama will survive and win.
Right. This is we said earlier, it's weird that this is a transitional year for Tennessee and the Vols. I didn't expect them to make a bunch of noise. And they're quietly 6-1 on the year. And this is again as you said, or I'm sorry, 5-1 on the year. But this is the first time that they're leaving Knoxville since that Florida loss. And I think this is going to tell us a lot about this Tennessee team. Is it going to be a wait till next year? They got some kids coming in. They got some really good talent coming in here in the next year or so. So I'm not too worried about Tennessee long term in this game. They come out, they get blown out, and I think that there will be some questions, why we're still, at two losses. Why are we rolling with Joe Milton? Let's start getting Nico some playing time. Let's really start looking at it. I mean, they could save their season at the end of the year, but Tennessee would be playing for 2025 24 instead of 2023 here. Alabama, here's the most weird non-Saban type of stat this is like a non-Alabama stat that kind of shows how different this team is. They have 48 penalties on the year. 48. Give you a comparison. The Duke Blue Devils have 28. This is a very undisciplined Alabama team. That's my problem with them, is they show flashes of greatness. Milrose shows times where he's just absolutely electric. And then he's got a guy like Jermaine Burton who just balls out one game. And then all of a sudden, that offense completely disappears. Dallas Turner's got 7 sacks on the year. And then all of a sudden, they're not calling his number very often. Like you're saying, well, where is he? He's not popping out on my screen. Superstar players at Alabama, and that's been the thing with Alabama for years. Superstar players always just pop out on your screen when you watch an Alabama game. Whether it's, Tua, whether it was Bryce Young, whether it was any of those wide receivers, any of the running backs that came through, quarterbacks, you name it. There's always been those type of things. And that's the thing, that it's not consistently popping out in this game. Last year, Jalen Hylett popped in this game. Kid went off against Alabama last year. Does Tennessee have a kid that can do that? Is it going to be Jalen Wright? Is he going to run all over this Crimson Tide defense? Is it going to be Squirrel White, who has one of the coolest names out there in college football? Is he going to be the one? Who's it going to be for either one of these sides that becomes that next superstar that we keep talking about? At the end of the game, there's going to be all these cigars lit up, whether it's Tennessee or whether it's Alabama. It's who is going to be the camera crew. That is the player that the camera crew is looking for to, like, we got to get a shot of this guy smoking a cigar. Like, he was the player of this game smoking the cigar. I don't know where that player is going to come from. And I think that that's what's going to be interesting to find out in this game. Alabama's been playing with fire. This isn't the same Alabama team, and they're at a completely different standard than almost every other team in college football, with the exception of maybe a handful of programs. How many programs in this country would trade off being 6-1 and still have a chance to win your division and conference title, or be in the top? AP has them at number 11 right now. Everyone would trade off for that. But Alabama's held to a different standard, and this Alabama team has been playing too much with fire. I'm going to tell you this, Fresh. I'm going to take Tennessee in the points. I'm going to take Tennessee in those 9. I don't like that. I think you're right. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think it's going to be a little more points than you said. I got this right around 24-20 type of game. I think it's going to be close. I'm going to go Tennessee in the points. Alabama ekes out another win. And I'm talking ekes out another win. They have the ball last. They put either a touchdown on the board or a field goal on the board to win it all. But yeah, I'm going to say Alabama wins it. And again, I'm with you, Fresh. Give me the under in this game. I don't think the over's coming in at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to see. I just think we're going to see a lot of flags. I think there's going to be a lot of emotions flying in this football game. We've even seen like Jermaine Burton make a big catch in the field and then do some sort of taunting and take a big. He makes a 20-yard reception, gets a 15-yard penalty. You're going to see some people like things like that are happening that just have you scratching your head, where you take one step forward and 2 steps back, and that's where this game's going to be neutral for a while with hard hits, with sluggish play. But then eventually Alabama finds a way to score and win.
All right, Fresh, let's go to our game of the week. We're traveling to Columbus, Ohio. The Penn State Nittany Lions. They are coming in. They are undefeated at 6-0, 3-0 in the Big Ten. Traveling to Columbus to face the Ohio State Buckeyes. Ohio State 6-0, 3-0 in the conference. Right now, time record, Ohio State is a 4-point favorite in this game. Over-under is set at 46.5. Felt like that was really, really low. But Fresh, these 3 defenses, there's 3 defenses out of the Big Ten right now that are the top scoring defenses in the country. The Wolverines are number 1 at 6.7 points a game. Penn State is at 8 points a game. And Ohio State is at 9.7 points a game. We want to talk about the offensive players, and there are offensive players galore in this game. Drew Allar and the 2 running backs, Allen and Singleton, who I would argue are the two best running backs in the country. I don't think you're going to find two better running backs like that type of combination. And then you have over on the other side, the Buckeyes. If you tell me Abuka's going to be healthy in this game, I think he's going to play. Is Henderson going to play? Got a lot of questions over there for that. But you still got a guy by the name of Marvin Harrison Jr. And this defense has really taken a huge step forward for Ohio State. So I'll turn it over to you, Fresh. What do you see for this football game?
I mean, these two teams are led by their defenses. They have offensive players, but these two defenses are elite. You mentioned it. I mean, we might as well fire Jim Knowles. You give up 9.7 points a game. Just can him. It's absolutely horrible. Tongue in cheek, obviously, fellas. But this is the way these defenses have grown, and they're executing on a game to game and play to play basis is pure art for football truists who love to see defense being played. It's great to see 50 points every once in a while, but you want to see those linebackers, those safeties, those defensive linemen getting after it and getting stops and getting off the field. And these two units do that to an elite level. Whether it's for Penn State, you have Curtis Jacobs, Kobe King, Kalen King, Abdul Carter, Adisa Isaac, among many others. On the other side, Eichenberg, Chambers, Ransom, JTT, who actually had his breakup game in this matchup last year, Jack Sawyer, the list goes on. There's depth. They're NFL quality players on both these defenses who are going to make plays in this game on Saturday. I think that's where, when Vegas looked at it, these offenses might have, talent, but they're going against elite defenses as a unit. And defensive coordinators in Manny Diaz and Jim Knowles who know what they're doing and are going to be prepared for this football game. Both these teams have navigated the early schedule. Penn State had Iowa. They had to play West Virginia. But Ohio State had to play Notre Dame. And that right there, not just Notre Dame, but they've had to play Western Kentucky. They've had to play Purdue in a spread offense and air raid style. They've had to play better offenses. So their stats might be skewed, but they've played a much more elite offense, in my opinion, which actually says more about Ohio State and how great that defense is, because they've also played Maryland. And Maryland had them on the ropes early, and that defense was the reason why they got the stops and allowed the comeback in the second half. They have been more challenged. So when you look at pure numbers of statistics and points allowed and yards allowed, it can be tricky because you got to look at who they've played. Penn State's played ho-hum teams. Ohio State's played the better offenses, and they've shut them down. And I think that's going to be the big key in this football game of managing Alar and the two running backs and the plethora of receivers that Penn State does bring. And they always bring a tight end that can play, and they always bring an offensive line. But that defense for Ohio State has been challenged many times, and they've shown up time and time again and got it. And they've gotten the job done. I think that's what helps them in this football game coming forward. When you look at statistics, is what I kind of mean, what they don't actually matter. Penn State is first in the nation, allowing 193 total yards a game, and second in the nation, and they have 27 sacks. They've been able to get after mediocre at best offenses and get after the quarterback and shut them down, force them into long down distances. Ohio State, on the other end, seventh nationally, allowing 263 yards a game. But they've played much better offenses, and they still have been shutting down opponents. And points-wise, they're giving up less than 10 a game. That's what I really want to see is they're still they're not even giving up chunk yards in garbage time. They're shutting people down. They're getting off the field. They're forcing turnovers. And sometimes it's not about getting the sacks, and sometimes it's not about forcing all the turnovers. It's just forcing the 3 and outs or getting off the field or forcing field goals as opposed to touchdowns. They have been able to adapt and get better. This is not the defense that lost to Oregon at home a few years ago. This is a defense that is prepared to handle a physical matchup or a spread offense and be able to play against both styles and play against them efficiently. They are prepared for this matchup, and they're prepared for Michigan and whatever might project after that. Jim Knowles has taken what he had at Oklahoma State in 21, used last year to find out who is on his 2 deep that wants to show up and play every single play, and how he can get his rotation set up and the guys to get comfortable with the alignments and the calls. And then this year was their year to take it to the next step. And they are doing it right now. They are showing it. And I think that's the advantage coming into this football game. Alar's had more experience. He had, the Rose Bowl, got a chance to really get his feet wet last year. And he's played very efficiently. But McCord has shown ability this year to make the big-time throws when it mattered. They were actually down to Maryland. Penn State has not had to deal with a comeback effort where a quarterback's had to grow up down the stretch and make some big-time throws. McCord did in that Maryland game. That's what really set him apart, in my opinion, as I am more confident if I got down or we're in a 10-10 ball game with 3 minutes to go. You put the ball in his hands, He's going to have Ibuka out there potentially. He's going to have the whole group of receivers. He's going to have Marvin Harrison Jr. You have the Stover, the tight end. You have the plethora of running backs, but I trust him to make the right read and get the right throw. The way Penn State wins this football game is they have to do exactly what Michigan's done the past 2 years. Keep the game tight, be physical, play the game tight, be physical, and then in the fourth quarter, you're worn out Ohio State and you find ways to get touchdowns late. That's how they've done it. Ohio State has actually led the past 2 times they played Michigan. They've been in the game, and then in the fourth quarter, they kind of stumbled, and Michigan was able to pull away. That's the only way Penn State wins this football game on Saturday. If they get physically tough and they play a full four-quarter game, and they find ways to manage the game, and Ohio State just doesn't have enough late and they get tired. If Ohio State's defense can play a full four quarters, watch out. The Buckeyes will win. And actually, I think that might actually project them to the number one team in the country and actually higher than Michigan because they've overcome this obstacle. But that's going to come with a defensive effort. Both teams have running backs. Both teams have quality quarterbacks, offensive line. But which defense shows up? And I think late in the ball game, this is the one time you're going to see that adjustment where Ohio State defense, what they did versus Notre Dame, they're going to do it again. They're going to get stops in the fourth quarter, and their running game is the one that's going to take over and take out Penn State. This will be a ugly, just very similar to the Tennessee-Alabama game where defense is going to rule the day. And you're going to see a 23-20, 23-17 ball game. Ohio State will win a late drive, a key drive. They'll have the lead. They'll be able to preserve it. A big third down throw from McCord to Harrison Jr. will seal the deal, and the Buckeyes will get the win. These games are always going to be close. They're not going to be blowouts. It's going to be a big win for Ohio State. It's going to show toughness, and it's actually going to show they are ready to take on and beat Michigan later in the year because they are going to show growth on all sides, both sides of the football from a toughness perspective, and especially at the line of scrimmage.
Fresh, it's going to be, can they execute? Can Ohio State execute? Because they're going to have the right play calls. You made reference to the game last year against the Wolverines. And one of the things that really just grinded my gears with it is I went back and I watched the all 22 film of that game. And every time Ohio State was just in the right defensive setting, but the kid reacted a second too slow or half second too slow, and the kid busted by him. And again, I think that goes to right where you said. Can Penn State wear out this Buckeye defense? Can you get them to slip up and not make the right play or not? They're making the right play, but they react too slow. These teams are so eerily similar because of that. I'm looking at this Lambert Smith. That's going to be the game. Like, is anyone able to match up with him? Is anyone going to be able to stop their number one receiver and turn them where you can load 7, 8 guys into the box and say, listen, we're going to let you try to throw the ball on our defensive secondary, but you know what? We're not going to let the two-headed running back beat us there. Allard has 12 touchdowns on the year, no interceptions. If I'm Ohio State, you got to get an interception in this game. You got to change that 0 to at least a 1 in there. You need Penn State to turn the ball over, give you a short field, be able to put some points up on the board as well. I really am questioning whether or not Ibuka is going to play in this game. If Emeka Ibuka plays in this game, I feel really good about Ohio State. Still feel really good about Ohio State after I watched the young kids come through it against Purdue last week. Carnell Tate, remember the name, from Chicago, 5-star wide receiver. Oh, yeah. And then we also have this kid named Innes, who's from Hollywood, Florida, who is going to be a beast in a few years. Both of these kids remind me of Harrison and Ibuka early on their career when we had Garrett Wilson and we had Chris Olave and JSN. That next line of wide receivers, Brian Hartline's done a phenomenal job building up that wide receiver depth and having those skill positions where it can be that next man up and they can jump in and play right away. They didn't have these type of kids last year. You know, when you started seeing some injuries there, these kids are ready to go. And I think that you're going to see some serious talent there. Defensive side of the ball, it's all going to come down to who wins the line of scrimmage. Which defense is going to be able to make the right call? The other thing, Fresh, that you didn't factor in is the James Franklin effect. Now, this is the best Penn State team that James Franklin has had in his time in Happy Valley. And if this game was in Happy Valley, I would be very, very concerned for Ohio State. And I probably would say that, you know, just being honest with myself, I'd say that Penn State wins this football game if it was in Pennsylvania. It's in Columbus. Give me the Buckeyes in this game. I think that Travion Henderson will be back for this game. I think he's going to be the real key in this football game. Everyone likes to talk about Marvin Harrison Jr., the connection him and Kyle McCord are starting to really develop there. Harrison Jr. has been phenomenal. I mean, the kid's got almost averaging 20 yards of reception right now. The kid's unbelievable. But I think this is going to be a Henderson type of game. I think the running game is going to be heavily leaned upon for McCord. I think you're going to see Chip Trainum, who had the big-time touchdown against Notre Dame earlier in the week. But again, you're dropping all the names. Jack Sawyer, JTT, all of those guys. They're going to need to get after LR and make sure that they disrupt this Nittany Lions defense. And then put the pressure on James Franklin. Put the pressure on him to make the right call and the right opportunity and to get his players to execute. Because you're right. Penn State hasn't faced an offense like this yet on the year. Ohio State, they've faced a couple of really good offenses. They've gone in tough games and tough environments. I just don't want to see Ohio State start slow. If they start slow and Penn State starts out fast and gets a couple of touchdowns in there, I get real nervous in that one, Fresh. So I'll take Ohio State and the 4 in this game. And I think that 46 number is spot on. I think this is like right between 45 and 48 points. I would stay away from the over-under just because I feel that way on it. I don't feel like really strong one way or another. I'm going to say this is going to be like a 27-20 game, somewhere right in that realm. Ohio State winning in the fourth quarter, very similar to last year in Happy Valley.
I think this is you mentioned it for James Franklin. He hasn't had that huge, program changing win. If he gets it here, that puts him in the real conversation for a playoff spot, and actually, for lack of a better term, driver's seat for the Big Ten. If he doesn't, could it just become like last year, where you go 10-2, but your 2 losses are to Michigan and Ohio State, and you got to get a gift of the Rose Bowl because the 2 of them are in the playoff, and it looks great on the outside, but it's like empty calories. Oh, we won the Rose Bowl, but we finished 3rd in the East, and congratulations. We didn't even play for a title. So that's where, what is Franklin drawn up? Where does that program take that next step for Penn State?
Right, absolutely. It's going to be a great game. It's going to be a great weekend. And folks, before you leave, if you want to support us, hit that subscribe button up there in the corner. Get notified every single time we drop a new video or a new podcast, whether you're listening to us on Apple, Spotify, Good Pods. You guys know I don't know them all. Leave us the 5-star review. If you're listening or watching us on the YouTube, congrats to you guys, because we talked about earlier about neither Fresh and I wear any makeup for these type of things. So hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, get notified every single time. Leave us a comment. That's the best way to support us here, folks. We want to send a special thanks to our producer, Drew. Without him, none of this is possible. He does a phenomenal job with these videos. And hey, make sure you're tuning into Spinnable Sports podcast area. He usually drops every Sunday morning, Saturday night, an NFL show. So if you want to look at the betting and how to see some different NFL games, make sure you check out his stuff that's on the channel here and go to spinnablesports.com. Yep, that's spinnablesports.com. Fresh is dropping NHL previews. I'm dropping currently mid-season playoff projections. So visit spinnablesports.com, because that's where their Irrational Confidence podcast lives and breathes. Fresh, one heck of a weekend. I can't wait for this one. And the clock is ticking for you.
We got a big football weekend. I can't wait. It's always great. This is going to be a great way. They're broken up where we have good noon games, good 3:30s, and good night games. It's nice balance. I'm ready to sit on my couch, with a couple beverages and just watch football all day long.
Absolutely here, Fresh. And it's going to be a wild one. So,
well, folks, tune in to Spinnable Sports. And until then, we'll talk to y'all later. Bye, y'all.